Welcome to another Space Weather Report. Since we all live in space, we can even talk about the Federal Reserve, because the Federal Reserve lives in space just like you do. So take a look at the sun at 171 angstroms. There's an active region rising. Not to be confused with the sunspot. Its magnetic fields are pretty weak, just like solar activity in general, which has brought the KP index all the way down to 0. Let's take a look at 304 angstroms. See what the plasma filament situation is. There's still a towering plasma filament down in the southeast. I think it's still there. It is yet to release. Let's watch it. I think it started to dissipate. And what else do we have? 193 angstroms view, showing you that insanely huge coronal hole rotating through. And let's look at the magnetic lines. Give us a little detail that we can't see from obvious visual views. And it looks like that coronal hole is still involved with the North Pole coronal hole. Otherwise, we've got really a bunch of mixed up fields, honestly. And do see a little bit of field density over there by that active region that's rising. We'll keep an eye on that. Let's look at the earthquake situation for the last 8 hours. By the way, the earthquake risks all continue. There we go. There's the predicted earthquake in Greece, the 4.6, antipode of the Fijian deep earthquakes. 5.0 on the East Pacific rise. Pretty rare 4.5 in Burma. They should be on alert for a 5 there, as that's 75 kilometers deep. Colombia should remain on alert for a 5, as that one is 161 kilometers deep. Indonesia gets a 4.7, pretty close to the surface. And the earthquake risks continue as long as that coronal hole remains connected, which it should do for another about 24 hours, assuming nothing changes. Now, you can see the X-ray flux has actually dipped down even lower. It was flatlined. There was a couple, A-class little flares in the A range a couple days ago, but that doesn't really count as a flare. Solar wind speed has dropped off a little bit. Solar wind density is staying below 10. And looks like the phi angle signal is breaking down. But I still expect it to be about 24 hours before that coronal hole disconnects. There's your magnetometer looking weak. So, eyes on this one. This could suddenly get perturbed. And as we can see, the last 6 hours with a KP index of 0, cosmic ray alert. And as we typically see with a coronal hole wind stream, we see this electron flux dip. Totally normal there. Eyes on that, not sure how long that will last, but the ionosphere is highly discharged. And there's your F2 layer, maxing out at only 9 megahertz. Weak solar output. Let's look at the cosmic ray situation. This is the past 10 days in Mexico. No big changes there, although a slight upward trend. Let's look at Oulu, Finland. This is actually a couple scales here. You got the multi-decadal scale. You've got the what is that, 10 days. the 1 month scale, and you've got the hourly scale. No uptick yet, but we're expecting one because with a KP of 0, cosmic ray flux always goes up. Now, speaking of cosmic ray flux has all kinds of human health issues. It's going to exacerbate medical conditions. It's going to increase the risk of things like suicide, murder. Cosmic rays can make you go crazy. It's a known thing. And here's an article from phys.org. Suicide at a 50-year peak pushes down U.S. life expectancy. How about that? U.S. life expectancy has gone down. Suicides and drug overdoses helped push up U.S. deaths last year. Thanks, fentanyl. We'll leave links to the article below. It is an interesting read. And a lot of the issues that are brought up in this article are exacerbated by cosmic ray flux. The nation is in the longest period of a generally declining life expectancy since the late 1910s, when World War I and the worst flu pandemic in modern history combined to kill nearly 1 million Americans. Back then, life expectancy was 39. And the 10 leading causes of death, which are suicide, stroke, diabetes, Alzheimer's, flu, pneumonia, chronic lower respiratory diseases, and unintentional injuries. Yep, all of those conditions are exacerbated by cosmic ray flux. Also heart disease. Your heart works on electrical currents. Cosmic rays affect humans directly. Believe it or not, there's plenty of research to suggest that it does. We'll leave this article below, and we'll cover that in more greater detail later. Let's look at the markets, which had a big rally yesterday, and we think that's because of the FOMC meeting, the Federal Open Market Commission, when all the Federal Reserve banks meet with the chairman and decide whether or not to artificially raise or lower or keep interest rates the same. This is our main argument about the Federal Reserve System. The main reason we hate the Federal Reserve System is because the largest block of business in the world is the interest on international and business-to-business loans. For the Fed to artificially control the prime lending rate is a complete affront to markets. And if the largest block of business in the world is artificially controlled by a cartel of banks, well, you can see how that could be a problem. If you think you're living in a free market capitalist society, you're incorrect. Anyway, the Dow went up 617 points yesterday, the NASDAQ up 208. Bond yields all went down. And basically we'll cover it in a minute. Big run on gold. Gold up $2, $1.79. Silver actually lost money yesterday, so that's a surprise. The buying opportunity for silver continues. And oil is still dropping. Unbelievable. Now below $50 a barrel. Let's take a quick look at what happened in the FOMC meeting. Basically what Powell said, that's the Fed chair, Powell basically said that he's going to be, less likely to raise rates in the future. So again, we'll have links to this article also. He said, interest rates are just below neutral, raising the expectation that the U.S. Central Bank is closer to the end of its rate hike cycle. Probably over fears with the recent market perturbations we've had. We've had some major declines. And so, now the prime lending rate is at 2.25%, which is still very low, especially after, it was at zero for, 7 years, I think it's been at zero. Yeah, and anyway, the Fed is targeting a little over a 2% inflation rate, and bankers will say that they agree with the Fed that we should have some inflation is good. I'm with Peter Schiff on this. I say no inflation is good. If your dollars buy less stuff now than they did a year ago, I don't know why that would be good. It's good for bankers. It's not good for you, as inflation is a hidden tax that is stealing your money. As the government prints more, yours becomes weaker in value. Okay, and that covers today's space weather and other random information. Let's take a close-up of that coronal hole as we close things out. Thanks everybody for watching. Please share on your social media these videos. We're working our butts off to help people understand things like astronomy, physics, cosmology, etc. And we're staring at the sun at the time of a solar minimum for a reason, because we want to see each of those variables interact. And then we're going to tell you how it works. Thanks again. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to videos. More coming out daily, sometimes 2 a day. Now remember, when you're responding to cosmic ray flux alerts, don't drink. And if you drink, don't worry about cosmic ray flux alerts. You have no control over it. They're going to go right through your head.